What's up everyone, I'm back and I'm here to talk about one of the biggest movie weekends we've had in a long time. So today I'm going to be reviewing Barbie and Oppenheimer, and just in case you haven't seen them yet, I'm going to try to keep everything spoiler free. First I saw Barbie, and I have to say that was definitely the one I was more excited for. Barbie follows Margot Robbie leaving Barbie Land to enter the real world and stop herself from having existential thoughts. In her adventure to the real world, she and Ken discover how backwards their understanding of gender roles is, and it has a devastating effect on Barbie Land. Barbie is not only a laugh-out-loud comedy, but a culturally relevant depiction of gender roles in the modern world. I was expecting it to get pretty meta, but this entire movie is so self-aware, and ends up having some inspiring messages about what it means to be a woman, and to some extent, even what it means to be a man. The monologue by America Ferrera about what it means to be a woman is super uplifting, and it's probably one of the parts about this movie I'm most excited to rewatch. The casting in this movie was about as perfect as you can possibly get. Margot Robbie brought a surprising amount of emotion to Barbie, and this might just be the best role of Ryan Gosling's career so far. He is absolutely hilarious as Ken, and the direction they took his character was very surprising. He exudes so much awkward charisma, and just hearing him talk about this role shows how much fun he had with it. The side characters are really fun too, especially Alan, played by Michael Cera. The production on Barbie is some of the most impressive stuff I've seen in a long time. To no one's surprise, the costumes and makeup are phenomenal, and just the sets in general literally look like the toys brought to life. I never really played with Barbies when I was a kid, but I definitely appreciate the shout out to that one Barbie dog that eats its own shit, so that was pretty cool. I also loved all the songs, especially Ken's song. If that isn't a shoo-in for best original song, then I really don't know what is. As much as I did enjoy Barbie, I wouldn't say it's perfect by any means. The ending left a little bit to be desired, but I probably can't blame that all on the movie because the people sitting behind me in the theater were some of the most obnoxious people I've ever seen in my entire life. So I didn't hear most of that last important conversation, which really sucks, but the setting of it was also really weird too. The other thing that really bothers me about Barbie is the fact that even though it has very important messages, the fact that it's coming from two giant megacorporations makes me question how genuine it really is. This movie is towing a very fine line between recognizing the harmful effects the Barbie brand has had on little girls since their invention and readjusting the brand image for modern generation. This movie will no doubt be a reinvention of the Barbie brand and what future generations will associate with it, and while it feels like it's coming from a genuine place, it's hard not to see that as a smart marketing decision for Mattel. But all that being said, it doesn't make me dislike the movie. I really love it, in fact. But I think it is important to point this out, because no matter what story is being told, the people telling it always have a reason to do so. Being self-aware is something I will always respect, but when it comes to something like this, if a company is going to poke fun at their major flaws, you'd expect them to make some actual change. Looking specifically at the way they depict the boardroom of all-male executives really rubs me the wrong way. We see one female employee during the entire movie, and the only time they listen to what she has to say is when they take her idea to make more money for themselves. Which I suppose is accurate to reality, but it really doesn't make for a fun or meaningful ending in any way. Speaking of corporate greed, as you likely know, there is a writers' and actors' strike going on right now, and it's important to remember why we see movies like this. It's not to support the big corporations that are putting them out, it's to support the people that are actually making the movies, the ones writing them and acting in them and doing all the work, basically. So if you end up going to see anything in the theater this week, remember who made that possible, and also that those people deserve to be paid fairly for their work. So anyway, Barbie's a great movie, and problems aside, I had a ton of fun with it. I'm gonna rate Barbie an 8 out of 10. Alright, now on to Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer is the latest outing from Christopher Nolan, which is based on the true story of Robert J. Oppenheimer, the creator of the atomic bomb. I'm not at all a history buff, other than some very baseline knowledge, so that made it a little tough to follow, but if you are familiar with the actual history, you'll probably enjoy this even more than I did. This movie is 3 hours long, but it uses every second of its runtime to tell every relevant detail of this story that they possibly could. For such a long movie, it's paced very well. Nolan uses his classic technique of non-chronological storytelling, which can be a little hard to keep track of at first, but once you get used to it, it's very engaging. Nolan uses a mixture of black and white and color scenes to portray the different perspectives of the story. The scenes in black and white represent the objective events that we know for a fact happened, while the scenes in color are Nolan's interpretation of these people and events. It reminds me a lot of Memento, which is actually my favorite Nolan film. My favorite part about Oppenheimer is the exploration of its central character and how one man's curiosity and selfishness can ruin his entire life and change the course of the world as we know it. Cillian Murphy gives the performance of his career as Oppenheimer. It leads to a character that you can hate, root for, and feel sorry for all throughout the course of the movie. My favorite parts of the entire movie were seeing Oppenheimer imagine the world around him on fire and destroyed by his own invention. By the third act, he looks like a shell of his former self, and it's kind of sad to see how much he regrets his own decisions. Oppenheimer has also maybe the most stacked cast ever. Pretty much every single character is played by a notable actor. You got Robert Downey Jr., Florence Pugh, Matt Damon, Emily Blunt. Hell, they even got Roderick Heffley in this thing. For the most part, the cast does a phenomenal job. The only person I had any issue with was Josh Peck, who stuck out like a sore thumb. I've seen this said about a lot of people before, but when it comes to playing characters that are set in the past, some people just aren't able to play out of period. I'm sorry, but Josh Peck looks like someone who has seen an iPhone before, not someone who should be setting off the first test of the atomic bomb. Even though it was cool to see so many actors all at once, it was a little hard to keep track of all the characters. So many names and faces all at once is kind of impossible to follow, especially when even the minor characters are played by actors I recognize. It makes me think they're more important than they actually are. The cinematography is insanely good, and combined with the sound design, Oppenheimer delivers on every sensory aspect, keeping you hooked for the entire runtime. I don't think this movie could have come at a better time, because nuclear warfare is still ever present in our daily lives. The way it downplays the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki almost make it seem like the worst is yet to come. It frames Oppenheimer as a warning sign for what the future holds. I know that's kind of a grim way to look at it, but that's what movies are supposed to do. They're supposed to make you rethink everything you ever knew, even if it scares you. I wouldn't say this is my favorite of Nolan's films by any means, but from a production standpoint, it might just be his most impressive to date. And when I do inevitably rewatch it in the future, I'm sure I'll enjoy it even more. Oppenheimer is very long and at times very confusing, with a scrambled timeline and a hodgepodge of popular actors, but it is such an astounding demonstration of Nolan's dedication to the craft, and will likely remain a culturally relevant perspective of history for years to come. So for now, I'm also going to give Oppenheimer an 8 out of 10. This whole Barbenheimer trend started because these movies are like polar opposites of each other, but they have a lot more in common than you might think. They both have some of the most impressive production of any movie I've seen in the last couple years, and they both have profound things to say about society and what the future has in store for us. I have to say, it makes me happy to see so many people excited about movies like these. For two films with such different target audiences to be uplifting and exposing each other to people who otherwise may never have seen them is really awesome. The theaters this weekend were probably the most packed I've seen them since 2019. Studios are going to try their hardest to recreate the spark that these two movies did, but ultimately I think movies are finally making a comeback. And if there are two films that deserve this kind of hype, it's definitely Barbie and Oppenheimer. And maybe Mission Impossible too, but that's besides the point. Well, that's all I got for today, so please let me know what you thought of these movies if you saw them. And if you haven't, you better just get over to the theater right now and see them. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and check out my other reviews on my channel. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one.